There are going to be plenty of fireworks up at the spa, but let's pick out some winners here on NYRA Bets. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, along with my colleague Kaylie Shapiro with a preview of the 4 stakes races headlining the 4th of July card here at Saratoga. Now, before we get into those races, I want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. Kaylie, we are your one-stop shop for everything Saratoga. We already got through day 1. Now we're getting ready for day 2 here on the 4th of July. Some great stakes races, some nice maiden races as well earlier in the card. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so much fun. Obviously, opening day was amazing. Today was a great day. Beautiful weather once the rain cleared out in the morning.
Yeah.
Weather looks like it's going to be beautiful all weekend. So really excited for the 4 stakes races tomorrow. Like you said, 3 graded stakes. And there's a maiden race before at the start of the late pick 5 that I'm really excited about. So that should be a really fun sequence that I'm definitely looking forward to playing tomorrow.
Absolutely. And you really like a bit of a price in that maiden race that precedes this late pick 4 all stake sequence. It's a Belmont horse, 8-1 in the morning line. You like the pedigree here a little bit with this one.
Yeah, the number 5 Sabito in, the race that kicks off the late pick 5 for Belmont. Obviously, Juddmonte owned and bred. The dam is Uno Duo. Uno Duo produced Napier, who won first time out. And then Napier obviously produced Ferocious, who we all remember his dazzling debut last summer here at Saratoga. So comes from a really precocious female family and has a really, really good work from the gate. If you look a couple back, I think 3 back, something that really catches the eye. So that's one that I'm looking forward to putting some money on tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Always prioritize those strong gate works from horses making debuts. It's just nice to see they don't have trouble getting out of the gate. They've done it before. And it's nice to see when a trainer doesn't go back to another gate work right away, where it's like, okay, he's good. And we can move on to just conditioning and getting him ready in the other aspects of the first race. So yeah, that's a great way to kick off that sequence. If you can get an 8-1 home, we'll see if you can get that price come post time. But listen, let's dive into the all stakes late pick 4, kicking off with the Manila Stakes, going a mile for 3-year-olds on the turf, grade 3. This race came up really strong. You have Zulu Kingdom, who is coming off a grade 1 win in the American turf last time out, going up against Reagan's Wit, who's a really nice horse for Cherie DeVoe. You have a couple of other nice horses, Revolutionaire and Uncatalyzed. But you ultimately went with a little bit of a big price in this race, and you went with a horse that is, only tried the turf twice, but it has shown some ability.
Yeah, definitely. And I did my handicapping before the odds came out. So I was, pleased to see the horse was 12-1. I thought it was a really competitive race, like you said, and you can make sense out of a few in here. So while I went with some logical options underneath this one, I think the number 8 Capitol Hill has a pretty good shot tomorrow going a mile. The turf, this horse did his best running, breaking his maiden, getting that 80 Beyer speed figure. Mott tried to stretch the horse out after, didn't run that poorly in his second try on the turf, but definitely doesn't want any part of going a mile and an eighth. This one does his best running when he's sitting close to the pace as well. And something that really caught my eye is that he's using Johnny V. That definitely is a little bit interesting. So I'm going to try to, go against some of the shorter prices in here. This one intrigues me a little bit.
Yeah, no, understandable. And I'm glad you brought up the jockey change. It is interesting that Johnny V's up, Junior's off, and Junior's actually riding Dale Roman's horse. Now he's strong in this race, who's a bit of a long shot. So, considering Junior's always Mott's number 1 rider, just an interesting development. You don't know what the decision-making was behind this from Mott's perspective or Junior's perspective, but yeah, definitely an interesting horse. And I always like to take a shot with horses that are pretty lightly raced on the turf, but hey, there's still upside potential there. So, and Mott's been on absolute fire over the last month at Churchill and at Belmont at the Big A before coming up here. So
definitely,
it's a hot barn.
The barn's on fire right now. So hopefully this one runs up to those standards and the stats that we've been seeing for Mott. But yeah, definitely intrigued me, especially at 12-1.
Yeah, listen, there's a horse, and we're going to get to Zulu Kingdom, who we both obviously have in our top 3. But a horse that I wish I had the guts to pick up top because I really like this horse, and I've liked this horse for a while. Anybody who watches or reads my content knows this, is the number 2 Tiz Dashing at 15-1 for Barclay Tag. I just love Tiz-the-Law as a sire. I love Tiz-the-Laws on the turf going long. They were winning at about a 23% rate at this point. I mean, he's become such an exciting first crop. He's not a first crop anymore, but kind of a new sire that Coolmore has. And, you know, that last time out in the Woodhaven, it wasn't the best effort. Admittedly, we did see the winner, Dream On, come back to win the Penn Mile. So I think that's notable. But this horse clearly loves the turf. You see that 46-2 bullet work back on June 27th. This horse has a ton of ability, I think, and just hasn't quite gotten out. Now, interestingly enough, Johnny Velasquez hops off this horse. Now you got Javier Castellano on. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Javi, who maybe is a little bit better coming from off the pace than a guy like Johnny, who's so much better up on the lead. It'll be interesting. I just think at 15-1, he's a huge price that has every opportunity to run well in this race. Even if he doesn't win, I think can enrich your exactas trifectas.
Yeah, and certainly the jockey change also does make a little sense. I'm not saying this would be the reasoning, but Javier Castellano obviously he's a very patient rider.
Yes.
Something I always really like about him. And also this horse, a positive about this horse. I mean, this is the first time going a mile, getting firm turf tomorrow at this distance. So
I think that is notable. The last time out in the Woodhaven, it was a good turf surface. And if you watch that race, he made a heck of a lot of ground up late in that race to kind of close in a blanket. I mean, he could have finished third easily in that race, but, you know, they were all kind of in a jumble there, really between second and sixth. So, you know, like I said, very close finish there in that race. But listen, we got to talk about Zulu Kingdom for Chad Brown. This is a grade 1 winner, and we're both trying to beat him in this particular spot. I'm not going to be foolish. I'm not leaving him off my late pick 5 ticket, that's for sure. But this horse done very little wrong in his career. His only loss in his career was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And, oh, by the way, Flavian lost his crop in that race and didn't have it coming for home, and the horse finished 7th. Every other time this horse has won, answered the bell every time. It's interesting, Chad putting him here rather than in the Belmont Derby, sticking to a mile rather than going a mile and an 1/8.
Yeah, you can see that the horse, you know, ran a really good race off the bench. If you look back, that race at Tampa, this same distance obviously was pretty fresh off the bench as well. Ran at 82. Looking at this field, I mean, just a little step up from that as well at a mile distance is good enough against this field. That was something that caught my eye about the Mott. You know, all these horses are running similar figures. So it's a good opportunity to try to play against on top. But like you said, not trying to be foolish here, definitely going to be on my ticket, especially with the good early speed that this one has as well.
Yeah, a very tactical horse that can sit a few different trips. If there's not a lot of speed, Flavian can put this one really in a close position. If there's a little bit more speed, hey, we can sit 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's not a big deal. We can come from mid-pack with this horse. He's really seemed to mature from 2 to 3. He was very mature as a 2-year-old, would kind of look around once he got past everybody, didn't really focus. That's why his margins of victory were also narrow. Now it seems like he's kind of figured things out a little bit more. But you're right. If you cross that 90 buyer out and you go, you know, maybe that number was maybe a little inflated. We don't know. All of his other numbers are kind of right in line with what everybody else is. Doesn't really stand out as a 6-5 favorite in that regard. So another one, obviously, we've got to talk about is Reagan's Wit for Cherie DeVaux. This one's coming off an impressive victory in the J.W. Murphy and scratched out of the American Derby just last week at Churchill Downs and pointed here instead. Another one who's moving in the right direction, getting firm ground now, lost to Zulu Kingdom only by a neck in that Columbia back at Tampa. Interesting horse in Cherie's barn. Obviously, you got to take pretty seriously with Jose Ortiz up.
Definitely. And the horse took a big step up last time out with that 86 buyer speed figure. Now gets firm turf again. So who knows what the horse is going to do at this distance. I mean, ran really well at first asking under the same conditions. So you got to wonder now that this horse is clearly in really good form, what he's able to do. And obviously has a good late kick and a decent amount of speed in this race that should be able to get the job done. That's why I have him 3rd here.
Yeah, I think, you'd be, again, a horse that maybe you want to try to get cute and leave him off your late pick 5. I mean, it just depends how deep you're going in this particular leg and what the rest of your sequence looks like. But a horse that certainly is very capable for West Point of running a big race here. But listen, that's how we see it in the Manila. Let's head on to the next race in this sequence, which is the Belmont Derby, and going a mile and an 1/8 here, going a little bit longer for these 3-year-olds. And there's a pretty familiar name in this race, which is the 4th place finisher in the Kentucky Derby, Final Gambit. Now, we should point out the horse Flying Mohawk has scratched out of the race. He developed some early onset signs of colic. It seems like he's recovering nicely, according to Jason Worth. So we're happy to hear that. But Flying Mohawk, who is getting blinkers added, that scratch changes some of the dynamics in this race, though, because you had thought, and we had talked about this off camera, he might have shown a little bit more early speed. There's not really as much now. And Final Gambit ran a heck of a race in that Kentucky Derby, but he's a deep closer.
Yeah, definitely. I just think that the horse is a cut above a lot of these other horses, in my opinion. Good thing. I know the Not This Times can really run on anything, any surface ever. And the mare, I mean, is all turf. Yeah. So when you really think about it, this horse has only run on the turf once at first asking and has improved a ton. If you liked Baeza, when you're thinking about it, I know it's a different surface. If you liked Baeza in the slightest in the Belmont Derby, and I mean in the Belmont Stakes, and thought that Baeza was going to run really well there, you have to imagine this horse, who made up a ton of ground in the Kentucky Derby, is going to run well here. And I know that obviously the fractions were very fast. I understand that, but I think, who knows, the horse can maybe sit just a little bit closer and just not lose touch with the field, and I think can get the job done. I think I'm excited to see this horse back on the turf.
I'm very excited to see this horse on the turf, because you mentioned debut was the only time we've seen this horse on turf. You're right. Underneath, it's all turf. Interestingly enough, lost to Maui Strong in that debut race, who we just talked about in the Manila Stakes. So interesting that both those horses ended up here. Pretty cool that both horses came out of that November 9th race at Churchill and are running on the 4th of July here in some big time stakes races. But then really improved on the synthetic in that Jeff Ruby Stakes, and took a big step forward on the dirt as well from a speed figure standpoint. Ran that 98 last time out in the Matt win. Listen, it was a 4-horse field with no pace, and so I almost just want to draw a line through that race. It's encouraging to see Flavian back up on the horse, though, after riding him that day. So that's, I think, a positive to certainly take. Here's the problem, though. I didn't like Baeza at all in the Belmont Stakes. Me neither. You didn't like Baeza at all in the Belmont Stakes. But I do get your point of, like, listen, this horse finished 4th in that big of a race. That's a pretty, you got to take that pretty seriously. And if those speed figures on dirt can translate even in the slightest to turf, obviously this horse then stands over the field.
Definitely. And all this horse really has to do is run a race as good as he ran in the Jeff Ruby.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here.
Absolutely. So, no, I think you're absolutely right about that. If he runs the Jeff Ruby race, he wins. Probably wins for fun, too. Listen, the reason I ultimately went with my top choice here, and we'll share those in a second, the reason I went with a horse like Test Score over Final Gambit is really about pace. And particularly, I was going in this direction even before the scratch of Flying Mohawk, but once the scratch of Flying Mohawk came out, I felt a little bit more secure, just because the number 1 horse, Tank, is the only speed in this race. And listen, that's a dangerous thing to say in a New York turf race going 1 1/8 miles, because they could be crawling up front. Or Louis Saez could decide to let it out a notch and try to just run off with this horse and see if anybody can catch him, which I personally prefer to see when jockeys do that. But we'll see what Louis decides. Either way, there's really only 1 horse that has speed in this race. Test Score for Grand Motion has the next best speed, I think, and can be sitting second,
100%.
no worse than third, and get first run in a race that traditionally you might not want to get first run at. But in this particular renewal, with a lack of speed, it might set up more like a dirt race where you want to get first run at the leaders. And so I just thought Test Score is going to sit that trip with Manny Franco aboard. Manny's such a strong rider. He's also pretty aggressive. So he's going to have Test Score, I think, in a good spot. 4-1 on the morning line. Not a huge price, but a little bit more value there. And again, am I playing against Final Gambit in the late pick 5? Probably not, because the horse is my second choice. So I clearly like him a lot. But I just think maybe Test Score sits a better trip and maybe leaves himself with a little bit less to do coming from home.
I completely agree. And that's why that horse is going to be on my tickets as well, and why I have him second. Honestly, definitely Test Score stands out in this field because of his good speed. Like you said, can sit close, isn't going to be left out of it. And, those 2 races that he just put together back to back, like I said, over good turf. I know I keep bringing that up about a lot of these, but it's definitely worth noting. I mean, the horse could run better now returning back, and clearly has reached a new level in the last 2 starts. So definitely one that I'm going to have on my tickets and that I have second. And with the way that the turf course was playing a little bit today, you really have no idea, too soon to tell. And the races were formful at the end of the day. So it's hard to, really figure, but it's just interesting and worth, I guess, keeping an eye on.
It is. And what Kaylie was referring to is the turf races today. We saw a lot of gate to wire wins on the turf. But again, to your point, they're relatively formful. Wasn't like we saw some 27-1 shot that didn't have any chance of stay up. It was pretty formful efforts for the most part. So it is, but it's something to keep in mind, especially since we're not getting any more rain. So you figure whatever condition the turf is in, it's only going to continue to be that way. We'll see. Now, horse that you like in third position, which we've not had a chance to talk about yet, is New Century for trainer Brendan Walsh. Ocean Murphy coming over for the mount. This one was coming off a third place effort to Zulu Kingdom and test score in that American turf at Churchill Downs. Certainly 3-1 on the morning line. A horse has tons of credentials and started his career over in Europe. So a lot of ability here for Qatar Racing.
Yeah, this horse definitely, even going back to before this horse was in the Brendan Walsh barn, looking at the race that the horse ran at Woodbine, you knew that this was a serious contender. Definitely last time out on the American turf, like you said, finished third to these two. So I view, this one is one of the main players in here. And like you said, maybe the pace dynamics can make it a little bit more difficult for this horse. But if he happens to be able to just sit, I mean, he wasn't sitting too far off the pace last time out as well, and just stay involved. And I think, he's a standout against this field. Yeah,
listen, all you have to do is look at the race 2 back. Lost a Field of Gold. Field of Gold is one of the best 3-year-old runners in the world and put on a show at Royal Ascot over Henri Matisse, who, oh, by the way, he lost to in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. So this horse has run up against some outstanding runners, in particular, another one, Luther, who is coming over in this race. Now, I said we can't let a European horse win on the 4th of July. I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to allow one of these British horses to win. No, you don't get to win on the 4th of July. You want to win on July 3rd? That's fine. You want to win on July 5th? Okay, I'll hear it. But the July 4th, no, we're shutting them out. We're shutting out the Brits. Get the red coats. That's what I'm going to put red coats on them. No, we're gonna get these.
The cannons there already at the track.
That's right. The cannon is at the track. Aim, fire. Here we go. All right. And so, listen, Luther though is a horse I didn't have in my top 3, but I do think is a little bit interesting. Another one. It's interesting. Karen Schumacher is coming over from Europe for the mount. That tells you something. When the jockey's flying across the ocean to take the mount for this race, Charlie Fellows isn't necessarily have the same name recognition as Charlie Appleby, Aidan O'Brien, John and Thaddy Gosden. So I do think you'll get a fair price on it. But this one, listen, sired by Frankel. Hello. Plenty of pedigree there. And this horse, you look at that race 2 back, Group 1 over in France, over firm turf, going a mile. Henri Matisse, Camille Pissarro. I mean, really good horses. One thing I'll say about Euros, when they come over, all jokes aside, they typically can get more ground because in Europe, that ground is undulating. It's up and down. So running a mile there, you can get a mile and a 16th, a mile and an 8th. Here in the United States, where it's flat, well manicured, two turns, is a different dynamic. So I think people who are worried, can this horse get a mile and an 8th? I'm not worried about this horse getting a mile and an 8th. I'm worried if he's good enough, but I'm not worried if he can get a mile and an 8th.
Yeah, and definitely just the trip over. I mean, the horse clearly has been facing high quality. A lot of horses fly over and adjust perfectly fine, but because they're used to it, this is this horse's first time shipping to America, so that's what makes him a little bit different. But wasn't there in person, saw a video of him on the track, and he looked really good. So I'm excited to see him in person tomorrow.
You didn't share this video with me. What you're
I think it was on the NYRA account.
All right. Well, I don't always check the NYRA account. Listen, I check the NYRA Bets account. Okay. Listen, let's move on to the next race before we start getting too goofy tonight. All right. Let's talk about the Grade 2 Suburban Stakes, 1.25 miles for 4-year-olds and up. This is a pretty cool race because you have a big superstar in the form of Locked for trainer Todd Pletcher, 8-5. Of course, the winner of the big cap. 2 back at Santa Anita Handicap going a mile, but disappointed a little bit last time out in the Ali Sheba against his stablemate Fierceness. Was going a mile and a 16th that day. Now we're going back to the 1.25 miles. You and I both think he's pretty hard to get around in this spot, and we have him as our top choice.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think that this race has a crazy amount of pace in it,
No.
but I think that locked is just that good. And I know that you can't just say, oh, going longer, the horse is better, but that is genuinely what I believe. And, you know, if you look, those races, I mean, the 109 Buyer Speed figure and the Santa Anita Handicap and the 100 and the Pegasus, and then last time out in the Ali Sheba, the horse was up against multiple good horses that, I mean, one of which set a track record that day. So did not, I mean, was a poor effort for his standards. But it's mostly a draw line through for me. I'm excited to see him come back tomorrow with more ground in front of him. And hopefully he just doesn't lose touch with the field. And then which I don't think he will.
I don't think he will go on a mile and a quarter against this group. No. I think he's got enough speed that that won't be an issue. And he's got such a massive late kick. I mean, again, that Santa Anita Handicap was so incredibly impressive. And you knew it was such a big race. You were always a little worried he was going to come off of that and regress a little bit. And he certainly did in that Ali Sheba. And, you know, listen, it's just, that was not his day. Fierceness, that race was dominated up front by, you know, Fierceness and Most Wanted, who were 1-2 the whole way around for the most part. So, you know, I think it is very hard to get around locked in this particular race. Now, we're going to do it in a couple of different ways. You know, there's a horse that, it's so funny. I have been making fun of people for like a year and a half about this horse, because all I had to hear was Disarm's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic as a 4-year-old. Oh, stop it. That's nonsense, because he ran one good race in the Travers. Everybody thought, oh, Disarm's going to win, you know, be this great older horse. I was never all in on this horse. And I've been right to this point, but now here's the problem. I like him. I like him today.
I have a soft spot for him in general. I had him in the Travers underneath Arcangelo. I have a soft spot for him.
It's understandable. He's a nice horse, and he rarely runs a bad race. And he's always honest. He's never really been that upper echelon, and he's never gotten the win. His last two wins have both come with Lasix, which I think is something that is at least a little bit noteworthy. But here's the thing I know about this horse. 4 career starts at the distance, 3 times hitting the board, and the one time he missed the board was a 4th in the Kentucky Derby. This horse likes a mile and a quarter, another gun runner, just like Locked. He's going to do better going long, and just like his dad, they're going to be better as he gets older. So I think that Disarmed at 8-1, it makes plenty of sense. Another horse coming from off the pace. That's why I don't like him more than Locked, because they're going to sit the same sort of trip, but he's got just as strong of a closing kick as Locked does.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, this horse is nothing but consistent. And definitely in the beginning of 2025, those 2 races, both 96, that's pretty good compared to what the horse was running prior. I know obviously he ran really good races in 2023 in the summer in the Travers and the Jim Dandy, but this is nothing but a consistent horse. And I don't have him in my top 3, but if he wins, I won't be mad.
Well, I might be a little mad because I might single Locked. But now a horse that you have in your top 3 who is probably going to be controlling speed potentially in this race is the number 8, Awesome Aaron, 7-2 for Norm Cassie. Talk about a claim. This was claimed for 40 and has done nothing but improve under Norm, and now is the winner of the Grade 3 Pimlico Special, last time out going a mile and 3/16.
Yeah, so that's definitely, you named all the reasons why I really like the horse. I mean, he draws to the outside, has great speed, and we saw that race last time, switching off Lasix for the first time in a while and stretching out, and the horse ran really, really well. That figure is so competitive up against this field. I have this horse second, I'm pretty sure, right underneath Locked. I think that he's going to sit a really nice trip and has shown the ability to hang on. I know that he's a practical joke and there are concerns with this and that, but it's not really a science. And the horse did it from off the pace last time out as well. Going longer. So that's definitely gives me a little bit of confidence, and I guess we'll find out. But I thought this one looked pretty dangerous from a pace perspective as well.
Listen, you pick Irad Ortiz Jr. up, never a bad thing. And listen, at some point, like you said, it's not a science anymore. And it's one of those things where, you know, at a mile, and if the horse has already won at a mile and 3/16, it shows he doesn't mind going a mile and 3/16. You know, you'd be a practical joke, but if you're already winning at that distance, then that's just kind of who you are at this point. And so Cassie certainly has turned this one around quite a bit. A horse that I like is probably going to be applying some pressure to him a little bit, and that is the number 7 Antiquarian. I have had a crush on this horse since the Louisiana Derby, when he broke through the gate and broke my heart that day, because I thought for sure I was sitting on a winning effort from him in that Louisiana Derby, but he broke through the gate before the race ever started. Then he got out. He stumbled out of the gate. It was just a no good rotten, very bad day for him. He came back, won the Peter Pan, and I thought, okay, we're back on track. Belmont Stakes felt like a little too deep of waters for him at that point because he was still pretty lightly raced and pretty inexperienced. And he ran 5th in a 10-horse field. I mean, he beat some decent horses home, certainly that day. Came back, though, and has run 2 pretty good races as a 4-year-old. Last time out, losing to Mystic Dan in that Blame Stakes. Mystic Dan coming back to finish 3rd in the Stephen Foster behind Mindframe and Sierra Leone. But at least has been trending in the right direction from a speed figure standpoint. Had a little bit of trouble going around the turn in that Blame Stakes, and they kind of had to re-rally as a result of that. Johnny Velasquez stays aboard. Notable, Johnny Velasquez rode Awesome Aaron last time out. Chooses to stay aboard Antiquarian. 4-1 on the morning line. Is also going to be sitting that front-running type of a trip. But here's the thing. You can't deny the fact this one's trained by Todd Pletcher, and maybe 2 horses up in the lead wouldn't be a bad thing for a horse like Locked, also trained by Todd Pletcher. So Antiquarian, I think, is there because he does fit in this race, but also he's going to ensure that a stablemate gets a little bit of pace to run at.
For sure. That's a great point, although it doesn't look to be like there's a ton of pace on paper. When you look at the dynamics to that level, I mean, it gives me a little bit of hope for Locke's chances. And definitely, I mean, Locked, Sierra Leone, any of those horses I view in the same category. And then you named Antiquarian and Mystic Dan and the Honor Marie's in here. To me, they're not up to the same level. I'm not going to be shocked to see this horse in the mix and hitting the board, but he's just no Locked, in my opinion. I think that he has a good advantage from a pace perspective, but he's also going to help his stable meet out a little bit, like you said.
I think so. I think we're going to skip over Honor Marie, and we're going to go to number 5, Ben Duke for Belmont. And this is a horse that, it's funny, you and I were talking about this race, and I said, if there's anybody who can be, and we were talking about this before the morning line came out, and I said, man, if there's anybody who can beat Locked, Ben Duke's kind of an interesting horse in this regard. And then I saw the morning line 12-1.
Yeah.
He's great value. If nothing else, you throw this horse underneath because that's just what he does. Even if you don't think he can win, the horse has shown an overwhelming propensity to finish second.
Yeah, definitely. 12-1 on the morning line is what excites me most about this, about Ben Duke. Obviously, the Mott Barn is on fire. We don't have to keep saying it, but this horse also has run races good enough to either win or to at least be in the mix. So I included 100%. Him. I don't think he's going to go on my tickets. But is he interesting in tries and even maybe exactas? For sure. And definitely, I mean, finished second in the Suburban last year. So that's something that certainly stands out. And clearly the horse excels going longer as well. So really interesting.
It shows you what a deep field this is because last year he not only finished second in the Suburban, he was your odds-on favorite at 4-5 in this race. He comes back a year later, having not really done much wrong, by the way, in between these 2 races. It's 12-1. I mean, that just speaks to how deep this Suburban field is. Really good field. I can't wait for this one. Speaking of a really good field, let's talk about the final of these stakes races, and that is the Harvey Pack Stakes. You got a chance to record our colleague Andy Serling doing a little bit of a video talking about the late, great Harvey Pack. That's going to be up on the NYRA Bets X channel on Friday. So you definitely want to check that out. Definitely appreciate Andy's perspective on that. Having someone who had such a great long-time relationship with Harvey. And, I grew up listening to him. And so very cool to see this race named after him, obviously going a mile for 3-year-old fillies. And this is one who, 5.5 furlongs, I should say, for the 3-year-olds. And this is for 3 and up. I'm all sorts of thrown off here at the end of the night, but listen, it is a 12-horse field. Not fillies. No, I got nothing right. I got the distance wrong. I got the age wrong, and I got the sex wrong.
But I love this. The slides look really good.
The slide looks great. No, the presentation looks fantastic. Just the information on it is no good. But I do have the right horses down, though, nevertheless. That's good. Antonio Venice is an MTO. He's running on Sunday, though. I know he's your fan. You're a big fan of his.
I love him.
I know you love Antonio Venice, and so you'll see him on Sunday, but not in this race. It's going to stay on the turf. But this is a wide open race. I mean, just an absolutely wide open race, and you can see it with our picks. You went 7-9-6. I went 10-1-9. I mean, we barely have any overlap in our top 3. But why don't you start talking about Felix for Tom Morley's barn as your top selection in this one?
Yeah, this one is pretty interesting. Has really good speed. Excelled, clearly going 5.5 furlongs and then stretched out and ran really good as well. Johnny V stays up, coming off a layoff, but doesn't concern me. Morley hits off the layoff a lot. Definitely the Lasix can be a little bit of a concern, but not too much. I think the horse is going to be able to handle going this distance off the bench, and has run without Lasix before and on debut, and didn't run poorly that day whatsoever. So I've shown the ability, and I know when you filtered a Lasix and stuff, the stats could look a little skewed. I'm going to look past those a little bit, even if they are very much true, because I think that this horse is pretty good against a field that's wide open, and 5-1 excites me as well in this one.
Yeah, there's not a load of pace in this race that you pointed out earlier. And, he's going to have a lot of speed. And, hey, Johnny Velasquez on a horse that might show good early speed, that's a good recipe right there. So plenty to like with Felix. I ultimately am going with a horse, similar price, Witty, 5-1 on the morning line. Listen, this is a cool horse. Maybe it's just because I like Pennsylvania breds, because I'm from Pennsylvania. This one coming off a win last time out at Pimlico in the turf sprint has kind of just improved every time out. I think you can make a lot of excuses for why he ran certain races as poorly as he did at different times, either the trip coming off the bench, just conditions in terms of Kentucky Downs sometimes. So I think there's a lot of reasons you can kind of draw lines through a lot of his races. And then he ran a bunch of races on the dirt. So he's got a little bit of muddied up form to some extent when you just look at his running lines overall. But this is a horse that can close. And what's impressive is, yes, they went 21-4 to the opening quarter in that turf sprint at Pimlico. They then slowed it down and went 46-2 to the half, which was a lot slower than you typically see a 5 furlong sprint go. And he closed like a freight train and just absolutely demolished that field. Went from 11 lengths back at first call to winning by 3 1/4. I mean, that's a heck of a kick, and beat a horse like No Name Hudson, who's a nice horse. And so I just think he's won at 5-1. Dylan Davis aboard, taking over for the first time, but Dylan had such a great summer last year at Saratoga. You draw the far outside or further outside post. I think it suits him well, and I know there's a lack of pace that's a little concerning. I feel like he's the one closer who might not need the setup in this race.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right about that. The lack of pace made me land on a horse like Felix, but this Witty clearly made up a lot of ground and some slow fractions, like you said, in last time out. So definitely an interesting one, and always runs good races as well.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Another horse that you and I both agree on is a horse, Bring the Band Home, for Mark Casse, who we saw win the Wild Applause today. And that was, big win, obviously, for that horse on Classic Q, who was your top pick in that race. And this is one who, Bring the Band Home, 8-1. I just think this one, again, coming off a little bit of a layoff, but a horse that's 7 for 11 in the exact in his career. And yes, maybe stepping up, but I think makes a lot of sense.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. This one is one that's definitely going on my ticket with Felix. Probably just the two of them, and 8-1 is a really good price. Mark Hasse's doing really, or at least did really well today. And also during the Belmont at Saratoga, he has a few live runners this weekend as well. So this one is certainly really interesting, and is another one with good speed in a race that lacks it. So which made me lean towards this one a bit, and definitely the figure last time out stands out against this field.
No, it makes sense. And I'll just say this, Mark Casse might have the horse I'm most looking forward to this entire weekend. Nitrogen. Exactly. That, I'm not saying she's not Torpedo Anna in terms of a 3-year-old filly from last year, but she's the type of filly that gets you excited.
She's so excited.
She gets you excited because if she can do what she did in that Wonder Again, which was on the dirt. And if she's able to run, and Cassie's even said if she wins the Belmont Oaks, she's going to the Alabama. Now that's fun.
Exciting. Seeing the way that she ran on the dirt. Oh my God, my jaw was dropped watching her. She dominated that day.
She's really good.
I hope she ends up going to the Alabama. That will definitely spice things up a bit.
I hope so too, because right now that division seems pretty wide open, with Good Cheer having, I don't think, worked out yet since that last race. Maybe gotten one work in. We'll see. Maybe just returned. Immersive still maybe working her way back. That division feels very wide open. Listen, let's talk about a horse I like a little bit. Number 1, Mischievous Angel. 6-1 for Jorge Abreu. Irad Ortiz Jr. up, draws the inside rail. I don't necessarily love that, but is cutting back. Having run at a mile the last time out in the poker. I think that's just too far for this horse. I think this horse ultimately wants to go 5.5, 6 furlongs. I think this horse is more of a turf sprinter. One going 6 against First Level Allowance, company, one going 6 in debut. When they've stretched this horse out, you've not necessarily seen quality returns. One at 7 furlongs at Kentucky Downs. Those are the 3 victories. So I think I'm willing to draw a line through a lot of those mile-long efforts. And if you do that, then suddenly the horse's form looks pretty solid. And that 94 figure he ran at Kentucky Downs certainly might be enough to win this type of a race. But he's got some other figures that are very comparable here. I always worry about the inside rail in these turf sprints. That's always a concern. But Irad 6-1, willing to use this one, maybe more underneath, like you, maybe not include on my tickets, but an interesting horse to throw around.
Definitely an interesting horse. And you point out that race that the horse ran in 94. Irad was up. Irad hopping back aboard today. Last 2 starts, Irad wasn't up. And also the horse has done his best work sprinting as well.
Yeah.
So really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Now, the last one that you had was Works for Me for Joseph Lee. That actually rhymes pretty well. Might need to keep in that in mind for tomorrow's video. But Flavian Pratt aboard. That's never a bad thing. He's been aboard the last 2 times out and 5 of the last 6 times. This is a horse, again, stepping up a little bit from recent competition, but definitely likes Saratoga and definitely likes the distance.
Yeah, and 2 back, Felix only beat him by a nose.
It's true,
I really like Felix in here, and this horse has good speed as well in a race with not much in it. Not good speed out of the gate, but definitely can sit close to the pace and be involved. And those 2 races last time out definitely stand out. The horse is in really good form. The 3 last races, and Flavian stays aboard, always a good sign. And 4-1 on the morning line, fair price. I might actually end up including this one as a 3rd one on my ticket.
Yeah, no, definitely a very interesting horse. And listen, it's a wide open field. I think you go a lot of different ways. I know you did a live stream with Andy Serling and our friends Ryan Anderson and Jackson Muniz, and I think it was crazy. I think all of you had different selections.
Especially in this one.
Yeah, especially in this one, in terms of this last leg. I mean, there was just very little consensus, which means it's going to be a great betting race and probably means we should congratulate American Monarch at 20-1 for Belmont on winning this race. I mean, that's how wide open it kind of feels in some ways. But listen, appreciate everybody hanging around for this late pick for Saratoga Stakes, or not Saratoga Stakes, but Saratoga Stakes preview. We've got to put the comma in there in terms of the pause. But listen, we're going to have a lot of more content for you. Going to have Capping the Card for the full card analysis for Saturday, Belmont Oaks Day. We're going to have some more previews for some of the big races on Sunday that we have as well. We're going to have our good friend Nick Zito on. We're going to be talking to Nick about some things, some exciting horses to talk about. Got some exciting guests that might be coming lining up, maybe some Hall of Famers. So going to be a lot of fun here on the NYRA Bets YouTube channel. So you definitely want to make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Kaylie, how are you celebrating the 4th of July? Are you a sparklers person, or are you like a big fireworks person?
I don't know. I like watching the fireworks.
Yeah.
To me, I'm going to spend the holiday hopefully watching Mott win a few races, a few of these top picks win. Racing's over late. Go home, go to bed.
Wake up early the next morning and pick winners. That's how she does it, folks. Listen, appreciate everybody tuning in here to NYRA Bets YouTube. Press that like and subscribe button today. For Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.